For decades, Sam Elliott has been one of Hollywood's most respected figures, a man whose deep voice, rugged charm, and old-school integrity made him a living symbol of American masculinity. But behind that calm, gentlemanly image lies a story few know about, a story of betrayal, bitterness, and a feud that lasted for years. Sources close to the actor claim there was one man in Hollywood Sam Elliott truly hated more than anyone else, and the reason behind it still shocks those who worked with him. Elliott, known for roles in Tombstone, The Big Lebowski, and A Star is Born, has always carried himself with quiet dignity. He's not the type to start drama or chase headlines. Yet, even the most composed men have breaking points. What happened between Elliott and this fellow actor reportedly changed the way he viewed friendship, fame, and loyalty forever. It began during the height of his career, when Elliott's reputation as a humble, reliable professional was challenged by someone he once trusted. Hollywood insiders recall that their falling out was so personal, it left deep emotional scars that Elliott carried for years. He once admitted in a rare interview, "There are people you can forgive, and there are people who show you exactly who they are. Once you see that truth, it's hard to forget." But who was this man that Sam Elliott despised more than anyone? And what really caused the rift that even time couldn't heal? The answer reveals a side of Elliott that fans have never seen, and it might just change how you see him forever. To understand the man Sam Elliott became, and the hatred that grew inside him for one person in particular, you have to go back to the early days of his Hollywood journey. Born in Sacramento and raised in Oregon, Elliott was never the typical actor chasing fame. He came to Los Angeles in the late 1960s with little more than a deep voice, a quiet confidence, and an old-fashioned sense of right and wrong. His dream wasn't to become a celebrity. It was to become a craftsman. In those early years, Elliott paid his dues the hard way. He took small roles, worked odd jobs, and struggled to find his place in an industry obsessed with glamour. But his determination paid off when he began landing parts in westerns, the genre that would define him. With films like Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid and The Quick and the Dead, he carved a reputation for authenticity. Directors loved him for his professionalism. Co-stars admired his humility. It was during this rise that Elliott crossed paths with the man who would one day become his biggest disappointment. At first, they were close, colleagues who shared mutual respect and a love for old-school storytelling. The two often spent time together off-set, discussing scripts, drinking coffee after long shooting days, and talking about how Hollywood had changed. Elliott saw in him a friend, maybe even a brother in arms in an industry full of egos. But that bond wouldn't last. As the years went on, jealousy began to creep in, not from Elliott, but from the man who couldn't handle Sam's growing fame and respect. When Elliott started landing major roles and earning critical acclaim, rumors spread that his so-called friend began undermining him behind the scenes. He allegedly spread false stories to producers, questioning Elliott's commitment and attitude. At first, Sam refused to believe it. He was loyal to a fault, the kind of man who gave people the benefit of the doubt. But eventually, the truth surfaced when a director revealed that the same person who called himself Elliott's friend had actively tried to sabotage him on multiple projects. It was a shocking betrayal, one that cut deep. Friends say Sam was furious, but more than that, he was heartbroken. He'd always believed that in Hollywood, a place full of illusion, loyalty was the only real thing a man could hold on to. Having that trust broken by someone he respected changed him forever. Elliott didn't confront him publicly. He didn't rant to the press or seek revenge. That wasn't his style. Instead, he chose silence, a silence that spoke louder than any interview could. But those who knew him best said the betrayal left a scar that never healed. One longtime friend recalled, Sam never raised his voice about it, but you could see the hurt in his eyes. For him, it wasn't about pride. It was about principle. As his career soared, Elliott refused to work with that person again. Even when big studios offered them opportunities to reunite, he turned them down without hesitation. "Some things," he reportedly said, "are worth walking away from, even if it costs you. What made the entire situation even sadder was that Elliot never stopped respecting the man's talent. He just couldn't forgive his deceit. To Sam, integrity was everything. Once that was gone, nothing else mattered. Over the years, Elliot's decision to keep the feud private earned him even more admiration in Hollywood. He handled betrayal the way he handled everything else, with quiet strength and unshakable dignity. Still, those closest to him insist that beneath that calm exterior, the memory of that betrayal stayed with him. It was one of the few topics that could darken his mood. As one friend put it, Sam could let go of many things, but not that. As time passed, Sam Elliott's career only continued to flourish, cementing him as one of the last true cowboys of Hollywood. His rugged looks, commanding voice, and sincere presence made him a household name. But behind that calm, stoic demeanor, the pain of betrayal still lingered. While Elliot rarely spoke about personal matters publicly, those who worked closely with him during this period noticed a change. He became more guarded, more selective about whom he trusted. During the late 1980s and early 1990s, Sam's name was everywhere, from hit films like Roadhouse and Tombstone to powerful TV roles that showcased his depth as an actor. Fans loved his ability to blend strength with vulnerability, but few realized that much of that emotional depth came from real-life experiences. The heartbreak he'd suffered from that Hollywood betrayal had quietly shaped him, fueling some of his most unforgettable performances. It's said that one of the reasons Elliot's characters always feel so authentic is because he channels real emotion, a lifetime of disappointment, resilience, and reflection. His friends often joked that Sam didn't play cowboys. He was one, a man of his word, loyal until proven otherwise, and impossible to corrupt. Meanwhile, the man who betrayed him had taken a very different path. Though once successful, his reputation began to crumble. While Elliot's humility and professionalism kept him beloved by fans and filmmakers alike, his former friend's arrogance and dishonesty slowly caught up to him. The two were never publicly seen together again, and though industry insiders knew of their falling out, Elliot's silence made it all the more mysterious. In interviews, Sam often avoided questions that even remotely touched on the feud. When pressed, he'd simply pause, smile faintly, and change the subject. But in one rare moment of honesty during a 2005 interview, he hinted at his disillusionment. Not everyone you meet in this business is who they claim to be. Sometimes the people you let closest are the ones who teach you the hardest lessons. That quiet comment spoke volumes. Fans and colleagues immediately began speculating who he might have been referring to, but Elliot never confirmed a name. To him, reopening old wounds would only give power to someone who didn't deserve it. Instead, Sam poured his focus into his family and his craft. His marriage to actress Katharine Ross became one of Hollywood's longest-lasting love stories, built on mutual respect and unwavering loyalty. Everything he once expected from that lost friendship. The couple worked together on multiple projects and built a peaceful life away from the chaos of Los Angeles, settling into a ranch in Oregon where Sam could reconnect with the simplicity he'd always craved. Ross once said in an interview, "Sam doesn't carry grudges, but he carries lessons. Once you betray his trust, that door never opens again." Even though Sam rarely expressed anger, those close to him knew that the betrayal had hardened him in some ways. He became a man who valued solitude, preferring the company of his family, horses, and the open countryside over Hollywood's fake smiles and false promises. Years later, when fate would almost bring them face to face again, at an awards ceremony where both men were nominated, Elliot quietly requested to be seated elsewhere. "He didn't want to make a scene," a witness said, "but you could feel the tension in the air. Sam just didn't want to pretend." While others might have sought revenge or public vindication, Elliot took the higher path. He chose peace over pride, silence over spectacle. But those who knew the story well say the wound never fully healed. It wasn't about ego or competition. It was about trust, and that's what made it so devastating. For a man like Sam Elliot, who built his life and career on honesty, loyalty, and respect, betrayal wasn't something to be forgotten. It was something to live with, quietly, gracefully, but permanently. As the years passed, Sam Elliott's reputation as one of Hollywood's most honorable men only grew stronger. Fans admired him not just for his legendary mustache and unmistakable voice, but for his integrity, a rare trait in an industry built on illusion. Yet behind that quiet strength was still a man shaped by pain. Those closest to him knew that the betrayal he suffered long ago continued to influence the way he viewed success, friendship, and fame. By the early 2000s, Elliot had become more reflective. He wasn't chasing fame anymore. He was seeking meaning. He took on projects that resonated with his personal values, such as The Hero and a Star is Born, where he played roles that mirrored his real-life stoicism and emotional depth. Watching him on screen, you could sense that he wasn't acting. He was living the truth of a man who had endured heartbreak and learned from it. In private conversations, Elliot's friends revealed that the betrayal taught him one painful lesson. Not everyone in Hollywood wears their mask for the camera. He had seen the industry's darker side, where people smiled at you on set, then stabbed you in the back the moment you turned around. That awareness gave Elliot a rare authenticity. He didn't pretend to be someone else. What you saw was exactly who he was. Over time, many who knew both men tried to reconcile them. Directors, co-stars, even old friends from their early career days encouraged Sam to bury the hatchet. But Sam politely refused. He wasn't bitter. He was just done. Some things, he reportedly said, don't need closure. They just need distance. His refusal to forgive wasn't born of pride, but of principle. To him, forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant letting go. And he had already done that in his own way. He didn't wish his former friend harm, but he didn't want to reopen old wounds either. Meanwhile, the man who betrayed him had fallen on hard times. His career, once promising, had deteriorated under the weight of controversy and bad choices. When asked years later about Elliot, he reportedly expressed regret, admitting that he had lost one of the few good men in Hollywood. But by then, it was too late. Sam had moved on, not with resentment, but with wisdom. In interviews, during this period, Elliot often spoke about legacy, not just professional legacy, but personal. He said, "You can't take fame or money with you. What you leave behind is how you made people feel." That single line captured who Sam Elliot truly was. Despite the betrayal, he chose to leave behind love, not bitterness. His family, especially Catherine Ross, played a big part in that healing. Their love became his refuge from the chaos of Hollywood. Living quietly on their ranch, they embraced a simple, grounded life, the kind of life Sam had always dreamed of. He tended to his horses, worked the land, and spent his mornings drinking coffee while watching the sunrise. Those who visited said you could feel the peace he'd built, a man who had endured pain but refused to let it define him. When asked in a later interview if he held any regrets, Elliot smiled and said, "Regret's a heavy bag. You can carry it, but it'll wear you down. I prefer to travel light." That comment spoke volumes. It was his way of saying that while betrayal had once consumed him, he had finally made peace with it, not by forgiving the man, but by forgiving the situation. Life had gone on, and Sam had chosen gratitude over grief. Still, there were moments when his eyes betrayed the calm exterior. During press events or interviews where his former colleague's name came up, Sam would take a long pause before answering. Sometimes he'd just shake his head slightly, offering no words at all, as if the silence said everything that needed to be said. To this day, Hollywood insiders continue to speculate about the true identity of the man Sam Elliot hated more than anyone. But perhaps that mystery is what makes the story so powerful. Because in the end, it's not about who betrayed him. It's about how he overcame it with dignity, strength, and grace. As Sam Elliott's career entered its later years, the once fiery and outspoken actor began to mellow, reflecting on the many paths his choices had taken him down, and the relationships he'd lost along the way. Among them, one stood out more than the rest, the man he once claimed to hate more than anyone. With age came wisdom, and Elliot began to see that what he'd once called hate was often born out of deep respect and frustration, not malice. In countless interviews, Elliot hinted that his biggest conflicts were always with people he admired the most, those who challenged him or mirrored something within himself he didn't yet understand. This softer perspective marked a shift in how Elliot viewed both his colleagues and his past. He began speaking more openly about the complexities of working in Hollywood, the egos, the creative clashes, and the deep insecurities that often fueled them. While he never mentioned the actor's name again publicly, those close to him revealed that Elliot had made peace in his own way, even sending a handwritten letter years later, acknowledging that time and success had changed how he saw things. In his personal life, Elliot found stability and balance through his wife, Catherine Ross, and their daughter, Cleo. Together, they built a life far removed from the chaos of Hollywood. Living quietly in their Oregon home, Elliot spent more time reflecting on nature, family, and the legacy he would leave behind. The man who once defined himself through grit and defiance began to embrace vulnerability and forgiveness. Still, Hollywood couldn't resist revisiting the stories of his legendary temper and old feuds. Fans and journalists alike tried to dig deeper into the decades-old rift that had once made headlines. But Elliot refused to feed the flames, often deflecting questions with his signature calm. "We were just two men trying to do the best we could. That's all there ever was to it." It was an answer that said everything and nothing all at once. Professionally, Elliot's later years were a renaissance. His performances in The Hero and A Star Is Born showed a side of him that many hadn't seen before, raw, emotional, and reflective. Critics praised him for his ability to channel real life, pain, and experience into his roles, proving that age hadn't dulled his edge but refined it. Fans felt that behind every line he delivered was a lifetime of truth, a mixture of regret, love, and understanding that came only from someone who had truly lived. Even as new generations of actors entered the industry, Elliot remained a symbol of authenticity. His gravelly voice, his stoic expressions, and his no-nonsense attitude continued to inspire countless performers who saw him as a relic of a more genuine Hollywood, one less concerned with fame and more focused on storytelling. He became the embodiment of timeless masculinity, tough, loyal, and quietly vulnerable. In the twilight of his career, Elliot often reflected on his journey, expressing gratitude for the lessons he'd learned along the way. When asked what advice he'd give to young actors, he replied, "Don't let pride ruin what could be something great. Sometimes we mistake passion for anger, and that's a lesson I learned the hard way." Many interpreted that as a subtle reference to the feud that once defined headlines, but now only existed as a distant echo of a younger man's pride. Today, Sam Elliott stands as both a legend and a lesson, a reminder that even the toughest among us carry scars, regrets, and truths we often face too late. The man who once truly hated someone has become a living example of forgiveness and growth. And in that transformation lies his greatest legacy, not just as an actor, but as a man who learned to confront his own humanity. In the end, what makes Elliot's story resonate so deeply isn't the feud or the fame. It's the journey from anger to understanding. The cowboy image, the gruff exterior, the iconic mustache, all of it fades compared to the quiet realization that forgiveness is the final act of strength. And for Sam Elliott, that act speaks louder than any role he ever played.